Welcome to another episode of Your World with Prakash Kapila. So, this week we will be talking about Joe Biden's diplomacy. So, each week, as you know, we're going to talk about issues or events that can affect your life, my life, or everybody else's life in this world. And the most important thing for any country in this world is to have good relations with United States and have a mutually beneficial relationship going forward with United States because by far it is the most powerful country in the world, and its influence spans across the world, right from Russia, China to European Union, Africa, South America. Its fleet is, the presence of U.S. Army and the U.S. military force is felt across the world. And more than the military force, U.S. Economic power is much more powerful than the military force. And the economic power comes along with the additional uh, force that is called the diplomatic force. So, diplomacy is one that drives the whole nations across the world. And we will talk about diplomacy of Joe Biden. And America's diplomacy is totally centered across what the vision the American president thinks about. So, for example, 16, Donald Trump thought that climate change is not a big deal. So he just unilaterally said, we are going to come out of it. We are not going to be part of it. So American president has got a lot of leeway when it comes to dealing with international countries. He doesn't need to, except for going to war, he doesn't need to get any approval from anybody else, and he or she can basically decide on their opinions, and their opinions matter and their visions matter because State Department and Defense Department are based on what the president envisions for those departments and how they want the departments to be run. So, having said that, it's almost 100 days that Joe Biden has taken over presidency, and we'll be looking at the different aspects of Joe Biden's diplomacy. So, the first thing that any US president has to deal with is Russia, then comes European Union, then comes China, then comes the Middle East, and then the other countries. And how these all these five entities are very, very important for United States in terms of being their competitors and being their competition in all the aspects, whether it's diplomacy, influence, or military, or any other aspects, even economic in case of China. So, having said that, most of the presidents will have a different view, different agenda, and different outlook when they run for the presidency, and they are grilled on different aspects of Middle East, different aspects of foreign policy, and they come out with all those vision, mission documents and statements, which are further coming will become the American foreign policy for at least that 4 years. So, what did Joe Biden promise? So, Joe Biden promised that he's going to have diplomacy in a different way, like what it used to be before. So that the other thing he promised was that diplomacy is going to take a center stage in all of the interactions with the countries. So, in case of Donald Trump, right? So, if you try to understand what Donald Trump was doing, He was more like a transactional. So today he would say Saudi is bad, and tomorrow Saudi Arabia buys some hundreds of billions of dollars of equipment. Then Donald Trump will say that, oh, Saudis are good. So one day it could be bad, one day it could be good. It's all transactional. So this transactional diplomacy is, I give you something, you give me something, and I have to get more money than you, or you get resources, I get money. Like that, this is a transactional. Whereas Joe Biden is mostly on a principled approach. At least that's what he has said. So in this principled approach, what are the different things that are going to happen unless you understand the approach of the American president? You would not be anywhere near the horizon of having a mutually beneficial relationship. So every country, as I said, needs this mutual beneficial relationship with United States, and that's why it is very powerful, and it has all the world bodies looking up to it for direction. So the first thing what Joe Biden has done is he has proclaimed that we are again going to be part of the multilateral world, where the other European countries are going to be part of the decision making process, so that you have a combined effort in doing something. Whereas Donald Trump had individual things. So he had a deal with China, he had a deal with Saudi Arabia, he had a deal with every other country. He wanted exclusive deals with every other country. But the Biden's approach seems to be a little different from that of Trump. Very different, diametrically opposite. That's what we can say. So, what actually happened? One is the climate treaty. Climate treaty has been signed. Has been re-entered too, because it's already been signed long back. And then the other thing is the multinational, multilateral, multi countries involvement in anything else. So here comes the biggest thing called JCPOA, Joint Committee for the Iran Deal. That's what we we can say. There are like five countries apart from the US that have gone into the treaty with Iran, right? So what happened is that Iran was supposed to give up the stockpile. Say there is a uranium, right? What this uranium does is you enrich the uranium. The uranium enrichment goes to a certain level, and once it reaches that particular level, that's when you can create atom bombs. You can create fission reactions and all those. So what did the Iran say is there is something called centrifuge. What is the centrifuge? Centrifuge is some rotating. You can just, in a very 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 simple terms, it's a rotating thing that can enrich the uranium. So the uranium can be enriched over a period of time to reach a stage where it can emit the energy. So it's like boiling water, akin to boiling water. But it's not that simple. It's a very complicated system. So just like you boil water till certain level and then it becomes water vapor, so you enrich the uranium from a certain extent to a certain extent, and then it becomes a radioactive, highly radioactive material, and it will be able to, you will be able to use it for a chain reaction that can produce a lot of heat and light. So that's how atomic bombs are created. They combine a lot of uranium and they enrich that, and to a certain level they enrich, and then it creates that atomic bomb making capability. But apart from that, these nuclear reactor, apart from making bomb, you can also use uranium to generate electricity. Okay, that's one of the most environmentally safe till now, till date, because not lot of not lot of wastages happen in that, and it can be managed. They put the uranium wastage into the sea, and it will stay there. It won't pollute the environment. So having said that, so normal uranium state will be, if you make it till 8 to 10%, you are in a position where you can generate the electricity. So what the once Trump came, what did he say? He's like, okay, Iran, I'm just moving out. I don't want to be part of the JCPOA deal, and you're up to yourself. And he started putting a lot of sanctions on at least some thousands of Iranian people who are close to the Iranian government. So Iran couldn't sell the oil. Iran couldn't do the transactions that it wanted to, or get the international money for its own purpose. So all the money got stuck in the banks. Each bank said, okay, this guy didn't want me to do anything. I can't transfer the money. So they gave oil, but they couldn't get the money. Oil was given, but the money was not returning back because of the sanctions. So what happens usually is, for any country, there will be a lot of people who will be doing these businesses, and they get the money, and the money is then funneled to the government, because oil in Middle East is a government property. So the government did not get any money, because thousands of people who were trading on oil contracts and all those, they didn't get money, so they couldn't pay the money to the government. So that's how US sanctions work on countries, right? They stop the payment of the money for the goods received, and all over the world, all banks will have to follow. Otherwise, they won't be able to do business with the most economically powerful country. So that's why every bank is ready to forgo other countries and not US. Therefore, any sanctions by US is across the world. Everybody follows it. All the financial institutions follow it, because they want to do business in US. That's the whole thing behind it. So once the US has set the economic sanctions, they percolate to European Union. So European Union and United States are 50% of the world GDP. Okay, so they hold a lot of weight in terms of economic power. So therefore, when Donald Trump said, "I'm putting sanctions, you can't go and sell to all the people," then it hurt Iran very much. Apart from that, he also allegedly moved closer to Israel, and Israel had assassinated, allegedly, the Iranian nuclear scientist who was the chief nuclear scientist. So there was a lot of, one after the other, things were getting piled up in Iran, and Iran was in a way in the corner, but it had to sustain. It was sustaining on meager funds that it was able to generate on humanitarian basis, because Biden already said that he is going to dialogue started with Iran. So what the US authorities expected was that Iran would come from their nuclear enrichment of 20%. See, the 20% is here, 80% is here. So they are from zero, they have gone to this level. They were supposed to be here, they have gone from zero to this level. So another 60%, then they can make a bomb. And what will happen if Iran makes the bomb? Saudi Arabia is out there, that is already fighting with Iran. Iran is Shia, Saudi Arabia is Sunni. I don't know much about why they fight. But one thing is that they very much like enemies. They don't fight in the open, but they fight in countries like Qatar, Yemen. In Yemen, there has been a huge crisis because of Iran and Saudi Arabia. So Iran supports someone, and Saudi Arabia supports the exact opposite guy, and they both are fighting, and there is a big humanitarian crisis in Yemen. And Saudi Arabia had so by going away from the Iran deal, uh, Saudi Arabia was able to buy so much of arms from US. So much of arms from US has helped Saudi Arabia, uh, in a better position than Iran in terms of military might. So therefore, Iran wants to actually come up with a nuclear bomb so that either use it or just use it as a deterrence. Mostly, it is a deterrence only. So Iran wants to develop that, but the treaty for US Iran is that you cannot create a nuclear bomb. So interestingly, there are two elections. One election is in Iran, the other election is in US. Iran elections are in June, and around same time, US elections, Iowa caucus elections are there. So the congressional seats elections will be there in a couple of 4 or 5 months. So everybody is watching the US. In US, all Republicans are saying that Donald Trump was better in dealing with Iran, and all Democrats are saying that no, Joe Biden is better in dealing with Iran. We got a better deal. Now, if Joe Biden, this is a classic hostage crisis, right? If Joe Biden comes down and gives some concessions to Iran, he will lose elections here. If Iran comes down from its position and submits itself to the treaty, then the people from Iran, or at least the guys who are not interested in these Western civilizations, they would be upset, and they will think that you have sold Iran to US. So both of them are like this. No, nobody can turn it because it is mutually destruction. Right? So they won't win elections. If either of them turns one, if Iran turns from its position and says, I want to reduce, then they will lose elections. If US says that, okay, Iran is, we went away, we will come back, so we will do negotiation, then Biden will lose elections. Congressional elections and all those things play important role in making up the policy. And that too, Biden is not unilateral. He is someone who wants to take everybody along with him. So in that kind of scenarios, the movement of the vision statements or the movement of positions, taken positions from one end to other end, will not happen very quickly. They'll take their own time. So here, for at least few months, there is a stalemate. So nobody can come down, nobody can go up. So if Iran actually makes a nuclear bomb, then nobody, US is not affected, Europe is not affected. They are just, it doesn't matter because it's not for them. It is for the Saudis. So there will be a lot of tumultuous, mismatch if Iran goes ahead with its program, particularly in the Middle East. So everybody will start. If they can't make nuclear bomb, they'll buy nuclear bomb. So North Korea is ready, and there are so many other wrong players that could fall, and things could change very drastically. So we all will lose. That's one thing. So in between, what happened is to push the US to a corner. Uh, the rebels, the Houthi rebels, I think, I don't know which rebels, but some rebels in Iraq have fired the base in the uh, uh, the air base in the airstrip in the uh, uh, Iraq. So where the airstrip is used by American forces. Why is American using its own airstrip? Because it has to. Iraq wanted American troops to be there for some time to protect it. So therefore, the Iraq in Iraq, U.S. forces are there, and when the people from Syria, the opposition group in Syria, bombed the airstrip, then immediately in couple of days, America has bombed those hideouts in Syria. So even if the hideout is in Syria and not in Iran, the people who died there were directly related to Iran. So now the big problem is, will Iran go away from its stated position and turn around, or it won't? Or will Biden take a step down and do it? That's one thing that we need to watch. And the other thing coming, the other important thing that affects all of us is the way Biden is dealing with Russia and China. So in all these things, Biden has not changed any of the tariffs. He has not changed anything that has been placed in Trump, except that he joined with environmental group. So tariff to China's goods have not been lifted. What this means is, as regards to China, US has not, most of the US lawmakers have not changed their position. They think that China is duplicating US technology. China is stealing the US technology, and it is remarketing the US technology with its brand. So, like for example, 5G and all those things. What America says is, China has copied a lot of. Huawei is the China company. Huawei, it has copied a lot of things from Qualcomm and other providers, and used it, rebranded it as their own, and sold it. And moreover, most of the American companies that have gone to China have not been able to be successful. They had to work with the local Chinese partners, whereas Chinese goods can be directly sold in US. US, if it has to sell something, they have to find a local channel partners and all those things. There's a lot of mismatch happening. So around 50 years ago or 40 years ago, which is like 1980, it's not that far. So 40 years ago, it was mostly, China was not that economically developed. So they had given a leeway. But now China is growing very fast and very hugely. And, you can't treat them as a third world country. So it has to be treated on par with the United States. So there has to be give and take. So that is what all of the lawmakers from Democrats and Republicans, they are saying that. So the tariffs are not changed. And the new trade secretary has said that tariffs are an instrument for negotiating with China. So as regards to China, nothing has changed, whether it's Donald Trump or Joe Biden. They are in the same position that China has to change itself. And most of the China China is occupying the South China Sea, a lot of islands, which Vietnam, Philippines, and Taiwan are saying that these are our islands, but China imposed itself on those, and there is a lot of nudging by China, pushing others and taking those islands and making them as a airstrip. And China has its own justification. They say we want to protect the South China Sea. So they have come out with these military establishments, and they're not moving away from that. So now US doesn't recognize the authority of China over those islands. So it is sending its ships around those islands. This is giving confidence to Philippines, Vietnam, and Taiwan in trying to deal with China. So the South China Sea also, there has not been a change in the outlook of United States. So what this actually means is China, United States is not going to change drastically the positions regarding the China. It's not going to change because a lot of people here have that opinion that China is stealing the technology. So when it comes to these kind of things, people will not budge. So China has to figure out another way to deal with US. So as thought, Biden has not given up anything to China. Now comes to Saudi Arabia. So Saudi Arabia, on the other hand, was a very close to US because of Donald Trump. So in 4 years, US and Saudi Arabia have gone very close to each other, so much so that even the US citizen Jamal Khashoggi, who is a journalist in New York Times, was executed in Saudi embassy in Turkey around 2016, 2017. So that till now they were like redacted, they were not made public because of closeness of Mohammed bin Salman to the Donald Trump administration. Now, since the administration has changed, what and also in the campaign, what Biden has promised the people is that he is going to call Saudi Arabia a bad entity, the pariah. That's what he's saying. The pariah that it is. So it first stopped selling arms to Saudi Arabia, and then it started doing the sanctions on people who are close to Mohammed bin Salman, but not Mohammed bin Salman. So till now, the other thing that Biden has done is he has told the King Salman that he's not going to deal with Crown Prince. He is going to deal with only King, and there are sanctions that are happening in with Saudi royals. So the other thing that Mohammed bin Salman, MBS that people call, is he has invested a lot of money in US markets and other places. He is the sovereign fund. He has a sovereign fund, and he has invested a lot of money in US markets. And Masayoshi Son also, he invested in Masayoshi Son, who invested in different companies. So that apart, what the US is saying is that what a lot of people in US are saying is Mohammed bin Salman is 35 years now. His father is 85 years. So in some point of time, his father may have to relinquish either because of ill health or death. And then Mohammed bin Salman will come, and we have to deal with him for 50 years. So just in 4 years, he created problem in Yemen. He created problem in Qatar. He created problem with U.S. citizens, Arabian descent U.S. citizens. So people are a little skeptic. They don't want to, because on a country-to-country basis, it's like for decades, things, Saudi will exist for 100 years, United States will exist for 100 years. So for another 100 years, they have to deal with each other no matter how. So and the relationship should be good. So if Salman becomes king, Mohammed bin Salman, Salman is the king. His son is Muhammad. Muhammad, who is son of Salman, is what Mohammed bin Salman is. So Mohammed bin Salman, if he becomes king, what are the ramifications across the region? Is what the think tank in the state administration is looking at. So therefore they have started to take it as a holistic picture. It's not like, okay, one person, whereas with Trump it was one to one interaction, but now it's a department. The whole department is going to come out and interact with the counterparts of each of those departments, and they will come up with a comprehensive policy. So here, Biden's influence is only on choosing the policy, that is choosing the alternatives in the policy that people present. He's not going to define the policy. The definition of the policy is done by the State Department, as what it used to be before. So it's not by judging what Biden has said, you can't come out with conclusions. You can't come out with things that are that will affect you, because this is going to be a whole departmental, whole army of things. Army of people will start looking at the each individual situations, events, prospects, and move with that. So all in all, Biden has the countries wanted to push Biden, but Biden has proved that he's not going to budge. He's not going to move very fast. He's not going to take uh, you know quick decisions, because impulsive decisions is the right word. Biden is not going to take impulsive decisions, and he's not going to move quick on everything else. But where it's required, he might move quickly, like climate change, where there are a lot of political will um, in parts of all the party and the people. But in terms of taking drastic steps with regards to other countries, he's not going to do it unilaterally. He's going to wait and let things play out. So every other country there is a drastic change in the US with regards to other countries. It's no longer what one person higher up the echelon says is what is going to happen. No, it's not going to be like that. It is going to be on a principled basis, where the democratic principles, the freedom, individual freedom, the human rights, the perception of freedom is given. Case in the point is Burma. So when Burma military coup happened, then the sanctions were immediate. The sanctions on the Burmese military junta has been immediate. Within a couple of days, they sanctioned all of them. So whoever is not following the democratic principles, the pressure is going to happen. The pressure is going to be there. And it will be a wheel, pressure, indirect, and it will be along with the other things. So having said that, we are out of time actually, and hopefully we'll no, hopefully you have learned something, and I have learned something, and please do come back next week, and we will take up another incident that affects all of us. So till next time, your world with Prakash Kapila. Thank you.